Let's start the show by talking about my sponsor, Paloma Verde, and their new website, palomaverdecbd.com. Head over to palomaverdecbd.com and check them out for all of your CBD needs. They've got the gummies, tinctures, salves. So if you're needing anything to maybe chill you out, something to help you get mellowed out, something for your joint pain and stiffness, go over to palomaverdecbd.com and give them a check out. Carlos and Vanessa are awesome people. They run a great company. And if you enter the promo code FACTS at checkout, you'll get 25% off your order. Plus, any order over $75, you get free shipping. So, I don't know what you're waiting for. Head over to palomaverdecbd.com and check them out. Let's start the show. This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This podcast, and today I am going to stick with the theme for the week, I think, or at least that's the way it seems to have been going so far. And I'm going to look at another instance of the GOP being terrible and horrible and absolutely awful in every way possible, at least as far as the psychopaths in the left-wing media would have you believe. So today we're going to look at an article that talks about the GOP sinks to new lows on election security theater. Republicans in multiple states are pushing a new tactic. And see, I had trouble getting through the first. I got stuck on this first sentence. I'll include the link to this, and hopefully by the time this comes out, they won't have changed it, and you can actually see how terrible it is. Whoever does the editing on most of these articles, whoever does the editing on a lot of the videos that these, like this is from MSNBC. I mean, come on. The first line is almost impossible to get through for somebody who's OCD and a grammar Nazi. The Republicans in multiple states are pushing new tactics and programs to tackle the mythical problem of voter fraud. Election police. I mean, that's humorous. It makes sense because the Republican solution to everything is police. So it is at least entertaining from that perspective. But continuing on, in Florida, Georgia, Texas, Republicans have passed new policies and laws that have created costly new infrastructure and enforcement mechanisms to crack down on what they claim is voter fraud, despite the fact that there is no evidence that voter fraud is a remotely serious problem in our democracy or in need of additional surveillance. Yes, according to all of the research that has been done by the left-wing media, there's no indication that voter fraud is a thing. And the interesting thing about this is, I guess the interesting thing about these, not necessarily statistics, but the studies that they do that say that voter fraud is not actually a thing, is that they are doing that based on like what you would consider voter fraud in the 60s and 70s, like Chicago style ballot stuffing and stuff like that. And with this new technology that they use for the voting machines, and with voting by mail becoming what it has, especially in 2020, like that was the big thing, was vote by mail in 2020. And they're going to continue to push that harder. In fact, they have tried to make it like, and I understand there are some states, I think I'm almost positive that Oregon is a state where they just vote by mail. They don't do going to the ballot. And that's cool. But they have like a very structured way that they do it, and they've done it that way for a very long time. The poo-pooing and just offhand dismissal of any type of like election fraud or voter fraud or anything like that comes from the left, it's as if none of them actually sat down and read the time magazine article that detailed all of the various ways that the left and this cabal of democracy and ensuring that the right people are in power went about handling the 2020 election. Everything leading up to it, like that had started in 2019 and before, like they already had their game plan in place and knew what they needed to do and had taken steps and actions to do it before COVID was a thing. That's like that should have been the most important takeaway from that Time magazine article. But what we know is none of these motherfuckers read that article because they don't read, because they don't care. Ignorance is bliss, and being willfully stupid is the way to maintain power, especially with the way things are run in this country. So when we're looking at this article, like they just don't believe that this is a thing, that it exists, because they're not paying attention to their own playbook for how they go about making this exist. And so what we end up coming back around to, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time reading through the entire article. Actually, I say that I'm probably going to end up pulling it back up and reading quite a bit more of it. One of the really interesting things that struck me, especially in the going through the first part of the article, is they come back over and over again to how much money and man hours it's going to require to run these these election security programs that the GOP has come up with in Texas, Georgia, and Florida. Like you really have a problem? You really have a problem with the government spending? And like in this case, it's a few $1 million. It's I can't remember the exact number. It was like 20 million, maybe. No, wow, 2,020,000 hours of labor. Like they're really getting worked up over $2 million when how much money has the U.S. government spent on all of this dumb shit just in the last couple of years? Like 2 trillion isn't even a high enough number. How many billions, how many hundreds of billions just got sent to Ukraine? You're worried about $2 million for voter security? Like, okay, pot, meat, kettle. Which is the funny thing. If you go back and you listen to the episode that Mark and I did on Monday, where we talked about the Salon's assertion that the GOP is promoting all this like violence and all of and they have this like super violent rhetoric, trying to overthrow democracy, like hostile takeover style or some dumb shit. They have no sense of irony. Like calling out the Republicans for spending $2 million on voter security while simultaneously sending $300 billion to Ukraine and thinking that's a good thing, while just printing trillions upon trillions and completely wrecking the economy and running inflation through the fucking roof. It's asinine. Like they have absolutely no sense of irony. They don't understand why. They don't understand why like normal people don't take them seriously. And the reason normal people don't take them seriously is because they clearly aren't fucking serious. Like there's no way that they can be serious about being upset about $2 million, which is like seriously a drop in the bucket. $2 million, the federal government spent that while I've been sitting here. Actually, they probably spent it several times over while I've been sitting here. It's absolutely ridiculous. But so I am going to go back to the article. There's a rising concern among voting rights advocates that increasing attention to aggressive enforcement could dampen voter participation. Will the exceedingly rare instances of fraud, which are committed accidentally a significant amount of the time, be punished with much more severe penalties? For example, if voters are confused about where exactly they're registered to vote or allowed to register to vote because they moved recently, or uh, here's another typo. I hate this. I hate this article. Because they moved recently, or there's they're between addresses, a fear of enhanced penalties could convince some that voting is not worth the effort. Let me just go ahead and tell you. Let me just go ahead and say it. If you have concerns that you don't know where to go to vote, or that you might be doing something fraudulent, just don't vote. It's not worth it. It's really not. Not at all. You should probably stay home. Let people who are actually committed to the process go take care of it. Just an idea. There are also questions about the exact purview of power of these new units. I really think we have a lot of procedures in place where these things can be addressed, and I worry that we're putting in place a police force which has no guardrails. All of a sudden, the left is concerned about over enforcement. The left, all of a sudden, is concerned about adding new procedures when we already have enough procedures in place. It kind of reminds you of the gun control argument, where there are literally thousands upon thousands of gun regulations on the books already. But for some reason, we need more. We need more. We need more. The thousands upon thousands that are already out there are not enough and will never be enough. However, we do not need to do anything to protect voting. No, we have enough. We already have enough. We should stop where we are. In fact, we should probably roll them back because there are too many. Absolutely no sense of irony. Fucking ridiculous. Finally, it's worrying to contemplate how these policies will allow the Republican political class to continue to mislead its voter base into thinking voter fraud is indeed a real problem. Some Republican voters might hear of these policies and think to themselves, surely if they're creating entire new police units for this thing, it's got to be pretty serious, right? Unfortunately, some of them likely underestimate the cynicism of the leaders of their own party. Their money spent on new election police and associated programs is better spent on funding to administer elections properly and solving problems that actually exist. You know what's really, really, really fucking hilarious about that last statement is that in a lot of these states, there are election boards and there are people who oversee different counties and cities and are directly involved in ensuring that elections are conducted properly and legally and fairly, that there is no crazy bullshit going on, that it's all, above, everything's above board and it's done right. And a lot of those are elected, democratically elected officials. You run for that office in your city, in your county, whatever. And the really, really funny thing was in 2021, a lot of people got elected into those positions in swing states who are Republican and GOP backed. The GOP already took steps to go out and make sure that that last line was carried out without having to add all these police and extra stuff. And do I think that any of this stuff is necessary? No. Do I think it's a complete waste of money and time? Absolutely. It's the tone deafness and the, like I keep saying, the lack of irony that comes from the article itself, and that it's a waste of money that could be better spent on other things. On what? More aid to Ukraine? Like, on what? Like, what are the Democrats spending this money on that's actually useful, that's actually contributing anything, that's actually building anything, that's actually growing anything other than our fucking national debt and the inflation rate? I haven't seen it. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off base, but if they're going to throw the money away anyway, why not? If anything, maybe it'll see how funny it is how all of a sudden we're back to being the left is back to being anti-police. I mean, granted, it's the election police or whatever, but here they are. They're back to being anti-police. Whereas just literally 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden was saying that we need to fund the police. We need to be putting more money towards the police. Yeah. That had to be a slap in the face for BLM. But yeah, so looking at this article, it is kind of ridiculous the amount of mental, which it shouldn't surprise anybody, the mental gymnastics that the mainstream media go through to promote this stuff. But how far the mainstream media is going to paint this as Republicans are doing something shady to alter the outcome of the 2022 and 2024 elections, specifically 2022. And I'm going to give my prediction on this. Excuse me. And I may be wrong, but I also kind of hope I'm right. I think that you're seeing all this stuff where they are making such a big deal of. So there was an article from the Atlantic or New York Times, I can't remember which one. Pretty sure it was the Atlantic, that had talked about all the different people who were getting elected to these election boards and stuff like that. And this was actually a direct assault on democracy. Winning a Democratic election to get on an election board is an assault on democracy. You can't have democracy in order to have democracy or something like that. So it's only democracy if the right people win, and by the right people we mean not the people on the right. So they're already setting the table. Like, you see it constantly, all this stuff coming out about the election, and especially these swing states. I think they know. I mean, everybody knows, but I think they know that come November of this year, it is going to be an absolute fucking bloodbath. And not in the way that the dumbass writer for Salon was talking about on Monday's episode. Not that kind of bloodbath. It's going to be a wholesale rejection of Democrats, especially in swing states, key states, slightly more purple states. I think it's going to be fucking epic. I personally think the Democrats are getting ready to lose the House and the Senate, and in a pretty impressive way. So for all the talk for the last year plus about how the Republicans are pushing this unfair or rigged election narrative, blah blah blah, and how that's all been debunked and disproven, and nobody was actually fortifying the election. Never mind that we wrote an entire 6,000 word article about how we were fortifying the election, but never mind that. None of that actually happened. This is all just wild QAnon conspiracy theory bullshit. But now they're setting the table to be able to come back in November and say, look at all these things that the Republicans did. Look at all the ways that the Republicans rigged this election and altered the outcome of this election, and this isn't fair, and this isn't democracy, and blah 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 blah. They are setting up their post 2020 election moment for 2022 for themselves to play the "you cheated" card. Let me tell you something, especially true in the game of politics. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining me. I will be back on Monday with a brand new episode to talk about. God, I have no idea. I haven't thought that far ahead. I didn't even have this one planned out. I just happened to come across this article and thought it was really good. If you really want to get the current events and the good news stuff, you should definitely go follow me on our morning show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Eastern, with the morning after with me, Mark Metz, Dag, and Clyde of the South. We have a whole lot of fun, and we talk about all the most important news topics of the day. And then, I'm not going to do a lot of current event type stuff on this show, probably. I'd like to do like what I did today, or like what I did Monday with Mark, like find articles and dig into specific stuff. If you want like current events and what's happening in the news right at this moment, that's the place to go. I am probably going to continue to dig a little bit more into some deeper topics. I've actually got a few things that I wanted to look at. I also want to do some other movie reviews and TV show reviews, which I'll probably get around to here within the next couple weeks as well. And if anybody wants to join me, feel free to shoot me a message on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, wherever, and let me know. Let me know what you want to talk about. I'm more than happy to talk about anything with anyone at any time. Hope everybody has a good rest of your day, a great weekend, and I will be back on Monday if you don't see me on the morning after on Friday. Have a good one, everybody.